Cody Rhodes' status remains a mystery. Why would Tony Khan want to buy Ring of Honor anyway? And what is the worst Batman movie? We'll talk about all that on this week's episode. Hey y'all, it's Grant Fletcher, and thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Trivial Culture. Y'all, don't forget, somewhere in the show, I'm going to have a trivia question I'm going to pose to you, so be sure you subscribe to the channel and then answer with the correct answer to the trivia question in the comments below, and I'll pick one of you to win this It's Trivial button here. I'll send it to you in the mail, and once we reach 1,000 subscribers, I will go ahead and I'll upgrade this button to an enamel pin, and the next winner on that one will get a free signed copy of my book, It's Trivial 1,000 Trivia Questions. Also, y'all, don't forget, Alabama Comic-Con's coming up June 4th and June 5th. I will be there emceeing. It's going to be one half Comic-Con, one half Kimetsu-Con, meaning we're going to have some Comic-Con guests, and we're also going to have, as guests, a bunch of cast members from the anime Demon Slayer. I'm really excited about that. A lot of great people on that convention. They're going to be announcing guests of that all the way up until probably right before the convention starts. So be sure you check that out. Go to alabamacomiccon.com to get your tickets, or check them out on Facebook, Alabama Comic Con there, or on Instagram as well. And y'all, just so you know, if you're going to be coming to any convention that I'm emceeing for and you have a copy of my book, It's Trivial, 1,000 Trivia Questions, make sure you bring it with you. Okay, I want to meet you. I want to sign your copy. I want to take a picture with you. I want to talk about trivia with you. So just be sure to bring a copy of the book with you if you have that. If you don't have it, and you're not sure how to get it, you can find it on Amazon. You can order it from your local bookstore. There's lots of places you can get that book from, and it's a lot of fun. So I hope you enjoy it as well. All right, let's go ahead and dive on in. We are going to be heavy on the wrestling content this week. And you would think it's because of the time of year, but it's really, none of it has to do with WWE. It's not WrestleMania-centric. It's very interesting. The first thing I want to talk about is Cody Rhodes, because we talked about Cody Rhodes a couple weeks ago. I talked about how I thought he was going to get paid to license, both for his wrestling deal, but also to license his logo that he has tattooed on his neck there, to put on merchandise. And I still think wherever he goes, whatever he does, he's going to make plenty of money off that logo. I mean, he's smart enough to do that. But what's interesting is that it seems like talks between Cody Rhodes and WWE have lost momentum. It was reported last week on March 3rd by Cassidy Haynes that talks had quote-unquote fizzled out between Cody Rhodes and WWE. Let's go ahead and take a look here. This coming from bodyslam.net. There's a lot in this article right here, but the main thing we're going to say right now is that, quoting here, additionally, I was told that discussions had been ongoing between Cody and WWE, but I was told those conversations have since fizzled out. Cody Rhodes, after that, responded or followed up with a tweet, a pretty vague tweet here, saying, "I'll let you in on a little secret. Wrestling fans are the face of it all. I was lucky to carry the baton for several years, and I'm incredibly proud of the changes we made for the industry and the livelihood of the wrestlers the world over. A great time, stuff for the history books." So it sounds to me like whatever he does, Cody Rhodes is in a pretty good place. And he knows his worth, and he knows what he wants. And if a company is not going to give him what he wants, then he's going to move on. And I think that's I mean, you can't be in a better position than that. You really cannot. So it sounds like he's doing okay, and I'm looking forward to seeing where he goes. But man, at this point in time, I don't know. I mean, let's think about it like this. It very well could be a work, right? This could just be wrestling and playing out in the media, planting false information so that they can get a big surprise. I mean, let's face it. AEW has rolled out a lot of surprises over the course of this past winter, and really not so much for WWE, right? They've got to be looking for a really big surprise, and if all of a sudden, this big surprise you had planned to bring Cody back, because everybody was looking for it, and it was pretty much reported immediately that he was talking to them, and they even verified as such in that article from bodyslam.net there. you're going to want to maybe create the illusion that it's not going to happen. It wouldn't be the first time that we were told absolutely not. They're not coming here. It's not going to happen. No way. And then they showed up, right? So this could be a last minute announcement before WrestleMania. He could show up at WrestleMania. I mean, we still don't know. So very much could be a work. I'm not saying it is. I'm not saying it isn't. But let's keep in mind that that may very well be the case. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is linked to that first thing we were just talking about, because Tony Khan made a very big announcement last week, didn't he? Tony Khan announced on Dynamite on TBS last week that he had acquired Ring of Honor. Now, these two things are linked together, I promise. Let's go ahead and take a look at the press release first, the announcement that was put on Twitter right after, before we move on, because I want to look at what's said here, and I want to analyze that before I kind of give you what I'm thinking. Let's see. So, March 2nd, 2022. Moments ago on AEW Dynamite Live on TBS, it was announced that Tony Khan has agreed to acquire the assets of Ring of Honor Wrestling Entertainment from Sinclair Broadcast Group, including the promotion's extensive video library dating back to 2002, brand assets, intellectual property, production equipment, and more. Known widely as the independent promotion that birthed some of wrestling's biggest stars of today, including AEW's CM Punk and Bryan Danielson, and highlighted dozens of members of the AEW roster, Ring of Honor's purchase signifies a new chapter in the future of professional wrestling as AEW's meteoric rise continues to draw the youngest skewing wrestling audience on television. Ring of Honor's influence on modern professional wrestling is etched permanently in the history books, and this acquisition ensures that its legacy will be kept alive and treated with the utmost respect, said Tony Khan, CEO of AEW, Chief Football Strategy Officer of the Jacksonville Jaguars, and GM/Sporting Director of Fulham FC. This deal adds thousands of hours of content to our rapidly growing library and creates new opportunities to expand our footprint on a national and global scale, while having the potential to produce new content under the ROH banner. That's the part right there that intrigues me the most. So, what does this mean, right? So it looks like we're going to be getting more Ring of Honor, which is great. So let's back up a little bit, I guess. Let's go ahead and talk about Ring of Honor. Like it says here, Ring of Honor started in 2002 as an independent promotion, eventually was sold to Sinclair Broadcasting. There was some controversy there. It's been covered all over the place. I encourage you to look it up if you're interested. But we're going to analyze what's really going on here. So Sinclair Broadcasting bought Ring of Honor. Seemed like they were interested, really, but maybe not so much after a while. And then every time it would seem like they were ramping up and putting more behind Ring of Honor, something would happen and they would stop. And then last October, Ring of Honor released all of their signed talent, and they said that their December Final Battle pay-per-view would be their last pay-per-view for a while. They were going to go on hiatus. And then they started to announce their April relaunch with the Supercard of Honor 15 pay-per-view. That was going to happen, I believe, April 1st. They're already announcing names for that, matches for that Supercard of Honor pay-per-view. So my question is, does it still happen? I guess it does still happen, but I don't know if Tony Khan already has. I'm not sure. I would imagine so. It would happen. I would think that if it's already booked, they already got the names booked, he'd want to move forward with that. So I'm guessing that is still happening. So there's a couple reasons why would Tony Khan want to buy. Well, there's a lot of reasons, let's be honest, but there's two that I think that are most important. One, a lot of people are saying, and even in the article that I just showed you from bodyslam.net, they talked about it a little bit in there. You can go back and check out that article. It's very good. That they were going to use it as an NXT of sorts, and I think that does kind of make sense a little bit, but I don't think it's going to be a straight one-to-one NXT. And I'll explain. Hold on. So I get so parched whenever I'm talking. I gotta stay hydrated. Anyway, I don't think it'll be this developmental place where They're teaching you how to work their way, so that you can be on their show. I think what it's going to be is it's going to be a place for them to sign independent talent to keep them away from WWE. Okay. WWE did the same thing with ECW back in the 90s. They did it with lots of people. If someone wasn't quite ready yet, they thought, or they weren't ready for them, they would go to Paul Heyman and say, hey, sign this person, tie them up. We don't want WCW getting them. They did that with Steve Austin. They did it with Brackus. Brackus didn't really work out. Steve Austin, I'd say that one paid off, right? I think if all of them were failures, except for Steve Austin, the whole experiment paid off, right? So, a few years back, it seemed like WWE was signing away pretty much all of the main event talent from Ring of Honor. Now, a few stayed, your Jay Lethals, your Dalton Castles, et cetera, et cetera. Too many to name, but, they signed away a lot of names, Kyle O'Reilly, Adam Cole, lots and lots of names. All of a sudden, here's the thing. I don't know if they're necessarily trying to drive I don't know if they were scared of Ring of Honor as a competitor, but I mean, here's the thing. If all of wrestling fandom is a pie, WWE is going to want to cut the biggest possible slice they can for themselves. And if they see Ring of Honor encroaching on that, if they see Ring of Honor trying to cut a bigger slice here, they're going to do what they can to try and push them back, right? Make sure they're not cutting that bigger piece of the pie. Same thing's happening between AEW and WWE right now. I don't think that either one of them is trying to, let me walk that back. I don't think AEW is trying to put WWE out of business long term, at least. I think that AEW is just trying to cut a bigger slice of that market share pie for themselves. I mean, it makes sense. So what they're going to do is they're going to try and cut WWE off from signing all this independent talent. I mean, WWE has been releasing a lot of people over the last couple years now. They did get pretty heavy, but that doesn't mean they're not going to continue to sign new people. It's going to happen. So you got to have a place to put all these guys, right? Especially if you don't think they're ready for your TV, but if they can work their style and work their style really well, you're going to want to put them on that other show. I don't even want to call it a B show. I think it's going to be mostly a separate entity. And occasionally an AEW talent will go down there, especially the guys that have history there, like we said, Adam Cole, etc. And they send them over to Ring of Honor to give some guys the rub, and also kind of act as a gatekeeper as well, right? I mean, you could send someone over there to wrestle someone you've had your eye on, you have high hopes for, and then after they work with them, they can come back to Tony Khan and say, yes, they have it. No, they don't have it. Yes, they do kind of have it, but they need more work here and here and here. So less like a training facility kind of thing, training ground kind of thing, and more just signing people to get them to work, give them a good volume of work so they can get more experience and get better and eventually put them on your show where people are going to be, at least one segment of the crowd is going to be familiar with them. Now, second reason, I think this is the big one. Streaming rights. Okay. Streaming rights are a big deal. All right. Licensing deals for television are a big deal. Streaming rights are also a big deal. AEW has not really existed for that long. And they don't run a pay-per-view every month, which I actually like. Thank you, AEW, for not running a pay-per-view every single month. And I don't think it makes sense to. Financially for the fans and also storyline wise, I just don't think it makes sense. I mean, I think they do a good job with having their handful of pay-per-views every year and then having their big events every now and then on cable TV as well every year. I think they do a very good job with that. I'm in favor of that. Now, however, when you're shopping your streaming rights to streaming services, it's a big, big flex to present them with a giant video library that they can dump onto their streaming service all at one time. When WWE launched the WWE Network, which you can't get anymore in the US, it was a big flex for them to say, oh, and also we have the entire WCW pay-per-view library. We have the entire ECW pay-per-view library, which they kind of, sort of, yeah. And then a lot of also, we're putting Nitro and Thunder up there, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a big deal. I mean, that turns your head, So if they can go to a streaming service and say, look, we want to sell you our streaming rights. We have a weekly TV show that's been going on for a few years now. We've got a second weekly show that recently started last year. We've got these handful of pay-per-views. Oh, yeah, and by the way, we have 20 years worth of footage from Ring of Honor, which is a brand that wrestling fans know. That's very attractive, right? I think it was a big reason why, say Disney bought up a lot of the properties that they bought up before they launched Disney Plus. It's a big flex if you can say, we've got all of Star Wars. It's a big flex if you can say, we've got all of The Simpsons. So it's a big deal. It's very easy to target advertising at wrestling fans or fans of any, one particular thing, right? It's just wrestling in this instance. You can target those ads on Twitter, on Instagram, on TikTok to get wrestling fans to sign up for it. So who would that be? I mean, you got to think about it big picture wise, right? Currently, AEW airs on TBS and TNT. YouTube as well, but we're not really thinking about that in context of streaming rights like this. TNT, owned by Turner Broadcasting. That company is owned by Warner Media, ultimately owned by AT&T. That's beside the point. But that is the company that owns HBO, and by extension, HBO Max. So you've already got a relationship with this company. You've been on their TV consistently for years now. You've been delivering ratings, a consistent amount of ratings, right? I mean, you're not really breaking the million person viewership so much, but you're dominating the demographics you're wanting to dominate, et cetera, et cetera. And also people just watch TV differently, but they know what they're getting. At this point in time, they know what they have on their hands. Turner knows. They know how many viewers they're going to have on Wednesday night every week. They know how many viewers they're going to have on Friday night every week. So you can take that reliable information and use that to sell your streaming rights. I mean, that's a big deal. Your streaming rights are a very big commodity. Merchandising is still going to be your biggest one, but AEW hasn't quite ramped up the merchandising to the level of, say, WWE, definitely, just yet. I mean, they sell plenty of merchandise. They've got good partnerships with a lot of great retailers and merchandise, printers, we'll say, in terms of shirts and posters and whatnot. So I think a big part of this is streaming rights. That's what it is. This is the kind of stuff that I kind of geek out about. It's really weird. I guess really weird thing for me to geek out about, but it's true. It's the kind of thing that I think about anyway. I'd love to hear your thoughts on all this, on Cody Rhodes, on AEW acquiring Ring of Honor, what you think AEW is going to do with Ring of Honor, and what do you think is going to happen as far as the streaming situation goes. To begin with, put that in the comments down below. Hit me up on Twitter at Grant L. Fletcher, or leave me a voicemail at the number that we gave earlier in the episode here. Now, before we move on, let's go ahead and talk about this week's trivia question. This week's trivia question, since we are so heavy on wrestling this week, it's going to be, on November 26th, 1994, who did Kevin Nash, or as he was known as at the time, Diesel, defeat to become the WWF champion? Leave your answer to that comment down below. Up next, we're going to be talking about what is the worst Batman movie, and we'll get to that after this. If you're like me, you're a huge fan of trivia, and that's why I wrote It's Trivial, 1000 Trivia Questions. Whether you're just a big fan of useless facts or you're starting your own trivia night and you need a resource, It's Trivial, 1000 Trivia Questions is exactly what you are looking for, with 10 great categories from music, movies, superheroes, video games. It's all in there. There is something for everybody. It comes in paperback and hardcover. You can get it on Amazon.com or order it from your local bookstore. That's It's Trivial, 1000 Trivia Questions. And if you pick up a copy, be sure to hit me up on Twitter at Grant L. Fletcher. So, Earlier today, I posted a poll on Twitter asking what is the worst Batman movie. And I took the three, I guess we'll say most hated Batman movies, or at least the three most hated movies that have Batman in the title. And I have to say, I was a little surprised by the results. Not shocked completely, but a little surprised, right? So here's what we had here. I had Batman and Robin, Batman Forever, and Batman v Superman. Now, I had anticipated Batman Forever coming in last on this one here. And I did this. This was an under 24-hour poll. I just thought of it this afternoon, and I was like, well, I'm going to record later, so let's make it a short one. So anyways, it's winding down now. Only 28 votes so far, but I just put this up at about, I don't know, I think 1 p.m. Central Time. Maybe 12:30 Central Time. Anyway, so I'm surprised here by I honestly thought Batman and Robin would be the winner here, and I thought that if it wasn't the winner, that it would Batman v Superman would be very close. I really did think that would be the case, and yet here we are, 53.6% saying Batman v Superman, and then followed by Batman and Robin, Batman Forever. Now, what's interesting, I think one of the things I think about Batman and Robin, it's not a great movie by any stretch of the imagination, but I do think that if you kind of think of it as a big screen adaptation of the 1960s Batman movie or Batman TV show, it's actually kind of fun in that context. And Batman Forever is kind of creeping into that territory, but not quite. There's some redeeming things about Batman Forever, though, I think. And then our friend Arlo here said that he didn't get the hate for Batman v Superman, saying if you watch the underrated director's cut, the storyline makes more sense. So again, with WB's meddling with Snyder's vision. And aside from that, I think people judge it too heavily because it came out in conjunction with Civil War, and this was also prior to the darker side. Yeah, that's interesting. I think movies that come out around a certain time can definitely taint your perception of another movie. We've seen that before with things like, The Illusionist came out around the same time as The Prestige. And you look at it like, oh yeah, look at these two movies about magicians, but they were both very, very, very different movies. So still interesting here. My biggest problem with Batman v Superman, and I have to confess, I'm pretty sure I've never seen the director's cut. I don't know if I ever really had a desire to after seeing the original one there. My biggest problem with it was that it was just, I thought it was just boring. Honestly, I was kind of shocked at how boring they managed to make a movie about Batman and Superman fighting each other. And then on top of that too, there's this weird whole thing with Batman's character development, right? Where he's like the older Batman and he's angrier, and somewhere along the way he started killing, and he's trying to, at some point in the movie, just find redemption for that, right? And get back to being the non-lethal caped crusader that we know. And then they have that awesome scene, right, where he's going through that abandoned warehouse and he's like just laying dudes out, decking them left and right, and it's so cool. And then he gets to the last guy and he just kills him. I was like, okay, so we just threw all the character development out the window. So zero regard for the plot whatsoever was another big gripe I had with that movie. But, I guess, hey, Batman Returns, he definitely kills some guys in that movie. So at least like 2 guys get killed in Batman Returns. I don't know. Go back and watch that. But not a lot of people were thinking about it at the time. But regardless, that's just my thought on what I think it is. If you ask me, again, I think it is probably Batman v Superman, in my opinion. That's not the director's cut version. Maybe I need to go back and watch it, and I'll let you know what I thought of the director's cut. But it was boring and just the weird, total disregard for character development. I could not get behind. So anyways, I'd like to hear from you, though. Let me know in the comments below or hit me up on Twitter. What did you think was the worst Batman movie of all time? What do you think was the worst movie of any particular superhero? I'd like to know. I'd like to hear your thoughts on that. Well, anyways, guys, that will be the end of this week's episode. Thanks for watching. Be sure you subscribe. Be sure you leave your answer to the trivia question down below. And I'll see you back here next week.